What is going on, everyone? Badger here. Should have like and sub, and let's get into this. So, Nerdrotic, the godfather, the spiritual leader of our little corner of the internet, certainly, and of course, leader of the fellowship. Gary was on Glenn Beck, and this is off a string of appearances off Piers Morgan. Of course, this time he's without Drinker, but let's go. It's just a phone-in appearance, but we're going to react to it, see what he said, because I didn't even know this happened. Shout out to if you caught it live. Mentioned it in chat earlier in one of the streams, and a couple of you were like, what? He was? So hopefully you're now, and we're all watching it together. But I just want to say shout out to Glenn Beck for having this up on screen, because even I was wondering, American hostages, 258 days in Gaza. So still American hostages. Look, I don't want American troops anywhere near that, barring us knowing the location of the actual American citizens there. Oh, that's when you send in all the tier 1 operators to go rescue American citizens, because that is the solemn vow of our government to our people, is that no matter where you are, no matter what country, if we know where you are and you're an American citizen, we'll come for you. Ooh, anyway, let's get into this appearance.
The one and only Gary Beekler is on. Nerdrotic is what he is known as, and
that's the most clear pronunciation of Gary's last name I've ever heard. Congratulations, Glenn.
He has been hysterical on the new Star Wars series from Disney Plus called The Acolyte. I haven't seen it, but I have heard about it, and I have heard my friends talking about Gary and his conversations on it. Disney is actually blaming him for the loss of credibility on that new space thriller of the space lesbian witches.
Communist space lesbian witches. And yeah, more people are watching Critical Drinker or Gary talk about The Acolyte than actually watching The Acolyte, and the viewing numbers definitely reflect that.
And YouTube has actually dinged him and is giving him strikes because he's a hate monger, because he doesn't like the lesbian witches in space. Gary, you're here to answer for yourself, brother. What's happening?
I'm here to answer for my sins against Disney. Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Glenn.
Yeah.
and that is happening to it's random, but it's happening to a lot of YouTubers and commentators. And I'm not sure if you're aware, the star Amandla Stenberg yesterday released a diss track against Star Wars fans.
Oh, please. I hope they don't play it. I swear I will not play it for reference. And yeah, viewing numbers as far as channels for The Acolyte have been very weird and wonky, going up and down. Normally that's something you can just dismiss as the algorithm being the algorithm, but it seems sort of targeted on this one.
And she is copyright claiming and dinging everybody on YouTube and X as well.
And I didn't get hit for it, by the way, because I stopped every 20-30 seconds to make fun of her.
For her blatant attack on the Star Wars fandom, which is always, just a great strategy that's, oh, by the way, never worked.
Yeah, I know. It's really great. Look, I'm a star of this new show from, just this legacy that have been loved for 50 years. And I'm a big Star Wars fan, but all the Star Wars fans, they really suck a lot. They're crazy. They don't know, talent when they see it. They don't know a good storyline. Yeah, that's the way.
It's the same thing. They come in, they say dumb, offensive things that piss off even the fans of the upcoming new stuff, like with Rachel Zegler. And then they're shocked. This happened with Doctor Who, Star Wars, Rings of Power, where the Patrick McKay called us all Yahtzees. Yeah. It's the same thing. And much like Insanity, they continue to do it and then are shocked that they keep getting the same results.
Way to attract those loyal viewers every single time. I saw the Rotten Tomatoes. The experts tell us that it's absolutely fantastic. 84%.
Mm-hmm.
The average audience score is 14.
13. I just checked it. So I just checked it. It's at 13%. Oh boy.
That's a bit high.
Tell me a little
opinion.
bit. Yeah.
That would be
good. So
tell us the story first. What is the story?
Oh, the story of the Acolyte is, as you said, there is a coven of lesbian space witches who magically conceived identical twins without a father through a power of not the Force, the thread. By the way, somebody needs to call Darth Povich because the twins.
And we've talked about it. It is, in fact, it's the Force. It's the Force by another name because the Force is the Force. Of course, of course. Now, Dave Filoni in new Disney canon might be trying to say that it's not, that it's some sort of weird dark energy or whatever, which even that I would argue is also just the Force. But yeah, it's the Force.
Twins don't look anything like mom. They don't have horns. And they were split up at the age of like
Kelnaka.
It was like 8 or 9.
Gone before we knew him.
And they haven't seen each other for 16 years, yet they have identical haircuts.
Really? What are the odds of the haircut thing? Really?
And we saw that they got the 2 melanated sisters, like the sisters who are also sisters of the Force Witches. We saw that they do, in fact, ritually dreadlock or braid them. So they've just been keeping that going the entire time they've been separated for posterity, for the memories.
That's crazy.
Well, a good hairstylist keeps her secrets. So obviously she isn't telling either one that they're going to the same one. But
so before we get into more of the lesbian space witch thing, which I think America and the world's been crying out for a very long time, tell me who is in charge of this disaster in space. Who did they get to run this?
Former personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein, Leslie Headland.
His assistant for 4 years.
Is the head writer on this show. Yeah. I know, it's shocking that somehow somebody connected to Harvey Weinstein can get work.
Yeah. I would think they would be in the Federal Witness Protection Program myself.
Or up on charges for aiding and abetting.
But they might even turn them down. So she found work after being the personal assistant. So the one that was lining up all of the hotel room meetings and everything else.
Guiding them in.
She's now the head writer of the lesbian space witch show.
She is. I think the term is Judas Goat. I think that's she got a job by begging for it on the red carpet when she was famously asked, "What's your favorite Star Wars?" And she said, "All the Star Wars," obviously not knowing a single thing about it. Later, she's come out and claimed that she does. And she's written this entire story that not only passed the Bechdel test,
which was a joke. Even the person that came up with the Bechdel, Mrs. Bechdel herself, said it was written as a joke.
Passes any DEI requirement with flying colors, for lack of a better description.
And what's the Bechdel test? It's like where it's a process where you look and it's okay, are 2 women talking to each other, irregardless of talking a man? What's the agency? Shit like that.
But
go ahead.
So ultimately, it's the story, Glenn. What Disney loves to do is conflate whatever happens on Twitter and any kind of complaints with like real criticisms of this show. And ultimately, despite all the obvious quote unquote diversity, which is just meant to exclude white men.
And shout out to the Disney tapes that just came out proving exactly they go out of their way and say, we're not looking for the usual suspects. We're not looking for your traditional leading man. White men.
Be real. And it's just a bad story that destroys the lore. And that's what Star Wars fans are mad about.
Yeah.
It goes back into the past and it undercuts Anakin, his entire redemptive arc, the specialness of Anakin and the prophecy. And every time they release another minute of Disney Star Wars, I can't even call it Star Wars. It's Disney Star Wars.
It's Disney Star Wars. You will sleep better at night if you compartmentalize right now, separate it. Everything before Disney took over, George, the 6 movies, all the expanded universe and the books and all that, and the Genndy Tartakovsky or whatever, those first micro Clone Wars, whatever they call them, the shorts, that is Star Wars. It's alive and well. Luke's heteronormative and married. He's got kids. Jaina and Jason Solo, Anakin Solo, all the Solos. This is Disney Star Wars. That's why it's so easy to just laugh at it now, because real Star Wars is behind us. And this, I don't know what this is. It's just meme material.
On D+, it destroys more lore, and that's what the fans are upset about. The thing is, this has been going on for years, Glenn. Yeah. This is you can take it all the way back to The Force Awakens, and it seems to come to a head on this show for some reason, when I think it probably could have come to a head 6 other times.
You can't mess with Anakin, and the Immaculate Conception is what's pissing everyone off the most.
But why this one? I mean, have they just been like, you know what? We've tried subtly to kill this thing. Let's just finally kill it.
Right. They found a way to kill something again. It's pretty amazing. I would argue that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was much worse as far as destroying lore. Obi-Wan was his sole purpose was to watch Luke, and they had a show where he takes off on Luke twice, follows around a little baby Princess Leia who never mentions meeting him as a kid.
And that is the bigger part of that break. Look, even in the George Lucas expanded universe canon, whatever, Obi-Wan left a couple of times in the earlier, when he was fresher, and, Luke wasn't unprotected. He had Uncle Owen, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't entirely unprotected. But yeah, he did leave a couple of times. The bigger part of that is the connection and the relationship they developed between him and Leia, which just is like, well, why wasn't she upset when he died in New Hope? Why was she just consoling Luke?
And fights Darth Vader twice. So it really shouldn't surprise anybody, but I guess this show is,
but this would
equate it. Oh, go on.
No, I'm sorry. We have a delay, and I forget. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I never thought I would be in a position of defending midichlorians.
How does he have a delay when we can all stream with no delay, and somehow
But this one kind of throws all of that out, right?
It kind of does. I personally am not a fan of midichlorians and never will be, but
right.
Gary will at least acknowledge the prequels.
Absolutely hate it. But I guess Disney Star Wars has proven things can always get worse. And the biggest victory comes with the prequels. Like, the prequels are now looked at much more fondly than they were before, thanks to every bit of Disney Star Wars Lucasfilm has created.
Because at least it was still Star Wars. It was still George. It was still the actual Skywalker saga, not the Palpatine trilogy or whatever they tried to do with the sequels.
But with this show in particular, it's just hit the zeitgeist, because I would equate it to the Marvels from last year. It was just so predictably bad, and then it still beat our very lowered expectations of how bad it would be. And it's a show, if you see it, it's contradictory. You have characters contradicting each other. None of it actually makes any sense. For storytelling wise, you spend your first 2 episodes establishing a character, then you go into a flashback for an entire episode that really doesn't tell you anything new. And then the last episode was 27 minutes long without, previously on in credits, and nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens. Oh, and by the way, Glenn, it cost $180 million to produce.
That's the biggest revelation too, is that, or just, asinine, that look at what they've done with Godzilla -1 compared to this. And then she had the gall, that writer Kitchell, to say that, we couldn't show the Wookiee fight because we didn't have the money for it. What?
Oh my gosh. What has happened to Disney? I mean, besides all of the DEI crap, the greatest storytelling company ever cannot seem to tell a story anymore.
Because they fired all of their storytellers, who coincidentally were older white straight men. Sorry. I mean, I'm being hyperbolic, but that is actually a larger. They fired most of their storytellers and writers and directors, and everyone knew what they were doing.
No, they are creative bankruptcy personified now. And they were on the top when Bob Iger decided to buy a bunch of franchises, and everybody was calling him this massive genius, when he just went on a shopping spree and never bothered looking into what it takes to cultivate these franchises and keep them around, what it took to keep them around for decades. You know, it's not being talked about as much, but they have a Doctor Who show that they are now in charge of running along with Acolyte, and they're both, it's a race to the bottom with both of these.
Oh, I love Doctor Who, and
so do I.
When did Disney buy into Doctor Who?
And I guess we all know, like, where have you been? They've owned Doctor Who for a hot minute. It's been ruined. Most people just have fond memories of it. They don't keep up to date. And yeah.
How did I
wonder if he knows about Ncuti Gatwa.
The BBC, but how did the BBC even let that happen?
Well, they're about to cancel it because the first female doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, by the way, wasn't a hit like they
we will lovingly call Dr. Karen.
Expected. And
what a surprise.
Yeah, what a shock. So they decided to bring back Russell T Davies, who had brought the show back in 2005, and it was extremely good and popular. And it's just proof you can't go home again. And how much has changed in entertainment, Glenn. Post 2016, you have the guy who originally brought it back, made it a worldwide sensation, making some of the worst Doctor Who now. And of course, it's filled with things like pronouns. And we had, it's not even the first like male kiss, gay kiss in Doctor Who, but they gave this one to the Doctor and made it more prominent with the first black gay Doctor. And they're in this trap now. Instead of giving the fans what they want and just making good entertainment, they have to abide. And the BBC started this much earlier on, back in 2012.
Yeah.
They had the Diversity and Inclusion Initiative, which is all the DEI stuff.
And from Disney specifically, we have heard from that in the Disney tapes, rather. Shout out to Film Threat for the original D files. In the Disney tapes that just got from James O'Keefe, Bob Iger is 100% one of the voices saying, I wanted to have overwhelming diversity in whatever particular project, he's directing that at.
And it prevents them from telling a good story.
Shackles.
They have so many rules on themselves. So with the corporatism, to go back to Disney, with the corporatism, they really can't take chances anymore. And this even goes beyond woke entertainment. They just need to have this built-in audience to spend money on anything, and in my opinion, overspend. And what makes things insane is they paid so much money for this built-in audience that they immediately decide to piss off, not only with their storytelling, they come out and gaslight the fandom with a term that's a real term called fan baiting, which is to start controversies online so people are talking about their show. And again, I haven't seen an example of this.
And shout out to Chris Gore for that tweet that pissed everyone off, but it's true that one of the biggest financial mistakes in the entertainment, I think might be anywhere, will be Disney purchasing Star Wars and Marvel because they were boy brands. Disney already had all the women audience. Already had it. They needed more men. So they bought they bought Star Wars and Marvel to bring in the male audience, and then immediately turned them into girl brands. And again, Chris explains it because that's all they knew how to market and produce. They don't know how to make TV, as been shown by many of the shows on Disney Plus. And so, yes, they bought something for the male audience and then immediately alienated them.
Ever working, but they've been doing it now for 7 or 8 years.
So we're talking to Gary Beekler about Nerdrotic, and he is Nerdrotic Online. We're talking about the new Disney show. They admitted that they had a secret gay agenda, and
it's not even secret. She asked, Daphne Keane was on it, actually says, let me ask you about the wonderfully queer agenda of the Acolyte. And Daphne Keane was like, oh, I'm so glad you asked me about that. Yes, indeed, Jackie will be scissoring. Probably didn't sound that, but yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I really don't care. I mean, I really don't care. But God, stop preaching to us and stop trying to make it look like the whole universe is, lesbian space witches.
Not the gayest Star Wars. Not the.
It's pretty gay. Let's be honest.
Because it just ain't. It's just not. And I used to think that George Lucas was the biggest problem to Star Wars because he would always introduce things like Jar Jar Binks. You'd be like, oh, geez. But at least he cared about the story. At least the story of the Force was consistent and it built on each other. Not anymore.
No, not anymore. This was a basic story of good versus evil, and it doesn't work in the modern nihilist times that we're in, where, oh, it's gray and the Jedi are bad. George was a genius. George is at the top of his craft. There'll never be anything like him again. Was he the best storyteller? No, he actually had a lot of help with the original trilogy.
George is an idea man.
Yeah.
Not much help with the prequels, but he's still, when he's putting in half the effort, he's better than everybody in Hollywood. And he's looking much better nowadays too. Unfortunately, he backed Iger with Nelson Peltz, and because he's an old man, right? He's in his 80s. He doesn't want to rock the boat. He's made a lot of money out this Disney deal, a lot of money, but Disney doesn't understand Star Wars, never will. And more importantly, they don't understand Star Wars fans, and they actively hate them, which...
And by the way, the whole like separation that I've already undergone, that I'm saying like, just Star Wars is that... George did that years ago. Star Wars is his 6 movies, as far as he's concerned. It's that simple for him. And so everything they do, it's like, it's not Star Wars.
It's kind of...
Well, I don't think they...
Oh, sorry.
No, I don't think they understand anybody. I really don't. I don't think they understand their own Disney fans, the children and the families. They don't understand any of it.
Because most of the people they hire don't have families and never will have families. So if you can't, if you can't create, you destroy, unfortunately, is how that goes.
They act as though they do hate them.
Because they do. And forgive me, this isn't Glenn's fault. This is my first...
Or what is that? If you can't create, indoctrinate. That's the other fun one.
Radio interview. So I apologize, and thanks for having me on, Glenn. They hate the fans, and they actively hate Star Wars, and they're now calling the fans racist and bigots for pointing out inconsistencies in lore. Like normal fan stuff that fans have done forever and will do forever. And that's like Hollywood's having a very hard time in the social media era. We've seen the death of the movie star, and quite frankly, it's because we got to know them.
Yep. So you open your mouth. That's the Mark Hamill, all the Marks, and a good portion of the Chris's. It's not Chris Pratt. You leave him alone. Unfortunately, they opened their mouth, and you saw what these people really think and believe. You go, oh, they're idiots. They're soulless, vacuous. They're nothing. Why? No. Yeah.
And now. It's based on properties, right? And they don't want to take the time to understand these properties. And you can't use the old model of, oh, well, we can just change stuff and nobody's going to care. No, a lot of people always cared. Now you're going to hear about it a lot. And you have to work. You have to figure this out or you're going down.
Gary, thank you so much for talking to us.
All right, shout out. Yeah, no, and that's the thing. We saw this in Gamergate too. All the old things that they used to do, all the old tricks of the trade. Remember, before the internet, what was the narrative of a movie? Well, what were Siskel and Ebert saying? Was it 2 thumbs up? What were the movie reviewers in the newspapers? And then maybe in the early 90s and 2000s, what were movie forums saying? But now with full-blown social media, twats, YouTube, this, Rumbles, all of it, all TikToks, everything put together. No. Our voice is louder than theirs. And in addition to that, their voice doesn't have any power anymore because they lied to us for so long. From Koof to other narratives, they lied and we saw it. And so now when they come out and they say something, we go, yeah, we're bigots, we're horrible, all because we didn't like Ray. That's what it is. Everyone is just one big bigot. It doesn't work anymore. And this is what we're left with.
The gayest Star Wars, I think, by a considerable margin. And are you excited about that? Are you
not
bracing
the gayest
yourself?
Star Wars. Not the
It's pretty gay, let's be honest.
Anyway, make sure to like, share, and sub. If you have done that, thank you. If you're going to do that, thank you. And shout out to Gary.
Well, bye.